Peace. My name is Allah Forever. I'm the creator and owner of BabyBeautiful.co, which is an online baby store to sell baby clothes. We are attempting to bring the best quality clothes that's available for your baby to wear. I created the online baby store because I seen that there was a market that we could use for economic development and growth as a people. So my main purpose is to really corner that market off and use it for economic growth and development for us as a people. Because I think that we need to always think in terms of how we can secure ourselves economically so that we can be able to build communities where we can populate and control those communities. As it stands now in America, we don't have communities. What we have is areas that we populate and places that we live, but we don't have communities. Communities are developed by you controlling economically, politically, culturally, and socially every aspect of where you live. We don't do that as a people, so we don't have communities. We have areas that we populate or live in, but we don't have communities. So the purpose of me creating BabyBeautiful.co, the online baby store, is so that we will be able to use that for economic development and growth to build communities. We are losing the fight today in all regards because we have not secured the future generations of our nation as a people, and that is the babies that we are producing today. In order for us to do that, we have to build economically so that we can provide communities for them to grow up in where economically, politically, culturally, and socially, we will be able to control every aspect of their lives. But we can't do that if we are not building communities, and that starts with building businesses. Now, I have a prior video that I spoke about this, about building businesses is the key to economic independence, and then in turn using that to build communities. We will not go anywhere as a people until we do that. So today's video, I want to deal with politics and the power of voting. The reason why I chose to deal with politics and the power of voting is because I think throughout the course of our history as a people in America, we have not understood what politics mean and the power of the vote. So I think that we need to really understand these two areas if we're going to move forward as a people in the 21st century. Because often throughout the course of our history, we hear how valuable the vote is. All through the 1960s, where you had the sit-ins with all of the movements of the black movements of the 1960s, you had many sit-ins and people marching for voting rights and all that. Now, during that time era, you had many blacks that believed that getting the power of the vote would put us in a position to be able to have a voice in America where we can use that voice to bring about change within our conditions as a people. And that was the belief. Now, today, after all the marches, the sit ins, all of the different struggles of our people with all the different movements, coming all the way up from the 1960s all the way up to the year 2017, which is where we are today. That has still not changed our conditions as a people. We have fought all these years believing that the power of the vote would actually put us in a position where we would be able to change our conditions. That has not happened, and that is not going to happen. No people in history has ever voted themselves into power. No people in history has ever changed their conditions as a result of casting a ballot. Casting a ballot does not mean that this is going to change your conditions. We still suffer from poverty, lack of employment, lack of housing, homelessness. We have an academic issue. Educationally, we are still behind as a people. So voting has not changed our conditions. Now, what it has done is that it has changed the conditions for certain people. Yes, certain people, meaning those who are our people that fall in the class of the middle class and the upper class of people. These are the blacks that have the PhDs, the master's degrees, the associate's degrees, and all these different degrees. These are the ones who went to the best colleges and universities. They hold some of the most prominent positions in society. They have became the mayors, the lawyers, the doctors, the educators, the teachers, but none of that has changed our conditions as a people. Having black faces in high places does not change our conditions as a people. Because we had blacks who became the first this, the first that in American society, that has not changed our conditions. We still suffer from poverty, poor housing, lack of housing, economic deprivation. We still suffer all around as a people. That has not changed our conditions. So I want to be clear about that. So when you see all these blacks that have these prominent positions in America, and they have the PhDs, the master's degrees, and all of this education, that is to make you believe or think that we've made progress as a people. That whole notion is false. We have not moved anywhere as a people in terms of how we can build economically and independently. We have not moved anywhere. whites still control every aspect of our lives, be it economically, politically, culturally, socially, educationally. They still control every aspect of our lives as a people in America. So let's not be fooled by this image that is projected in America about blacks making progress as a result of the power of the vote and participating in politics. We have not moved as a people anywhere since the days of slavery. All that has done is modernize slavery, put it on another scale. Went from physical slavery to mental slavery, where we are controlled and we don't even know it. And the ones that do know it don't want to even acknowledge it. They still think that they are free. So that's why I decided that I wanted to do this video about politics and the power of the vote. Because all of those movements of the 1960s have produced a false image of progress for black people in America. Yeah, all of those movements were, their intent was good because they really wanted change. They really believed that they could change things for the better in America for black people. I have no doubt that they believed that. That's not what my focus is today in this video. My focus is to show that politics and the power of the vote has not changed our conditions as a people. Even with all those struggles and all those movements that blacks had established and used as means to change our conditions, it has failed to do that. So I want to show that politics and the power of the vote did not change that. And right now, today, we have so many black people that they actually believe that the power of the vote will change our conditions. Well, we've seen so many black elected officials in politics, whether they be mayors, congressmen, senators, legislators, whether they are in city government, state government, or federal government, whether they are judges. I mean, that still has not changed our conditions as a people. You can't have individuals in positions that it appears to be a power and think that that is going to change our conditions. As long as you have a system that we are under where white supremacy, meaning whites that have the power, whites that are in control, our conditions will never change. As long as we believe in that system. Now, we can change our conditions. I have no doubt about that. But we can't change it if we continue to fight for and believe in the power of politics and whites in America. We cannot do that. That's not never going to happen. Now, if we take control and decide that we want to change our conditions and we start building economically, building businesses, building communities, then we will be able to change that on our own. We don't need to deal with their system. Now, what I mean by that is that we have to get away from this idea where we believe that dealing with American politics and the power of the vote is going to change our conditions as a people. We have to get away from that. We have to stop believing in the American system. That is one of the most failed ideas that we have had as a people when we started believing in the American system. We will never change our conditions if we think that we're going to do it through their system. Now, when I spoke of politics, all politics is dealing with is the system of government that you are under. Now, you have three branches of the government that we are under in America: executive, judicial, and legislative. Now, the executive branch is the President of the United States. The judicial branch is where you have the judges, the lawyers, the police department, all of them is fall under the judicial branch. And then you have the legislative branch, which is those who make the laws. That would be your senators, legislators, congressmen, on city, state, and federal level. I mean, you see this in action every day. But we don't control that, and it was not created by us. So when people start talking about politics and the power of the vote, and they start talking about the Republicans, the Democrats, the conservatives, and the liberals, all of these confusing terms, because that's what it appears to be to many black people, confusing terms. When you start talking about Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, independents, what does all that really mean? I'll tell you in simple terms what it means. White people in control. That's all it means. Whites in control. They control your life economically, politically, culturally, socially, educationally. They control every aspect of your life. So it doesn't matter what they call themselves, a Democrat, a Republican, a conservative, a liberal, an independent. None of that matters. What they classify themselves as being. Because the reality is that they are the ones who control every aspect of blacks' lives in America. So it doesn't matter what they call themselves. We know that it all boils down to one day. It's white men with money and power that control the system of government and politics in America. Plain and simple. White men with money and power is who controls the system of government in America. That's how you got somebody like a Donald Trump who can become the president of the United States. Because he was a white man with money and power. Now, don't think of Barack Obama when I speak about this, because Barack Obama, they put him in power. But he didn't have any power. He just became the president of the United States, which was definitely something unheard of for blacks in America. So you have many blacks that believed because Barack Obama became the first black president of the United States that meant a whole lot. I mean, when he became the president of the United States, I was in prison. So it didn't mean anything to me. My condition still didn't change, and I still remained in prison. In fact, when he became the president of the United States, I was going to my next parole board hearing, and they still said I had to do another 2 years. So it didn't matter that he was the president of the United States. What did that matter? That wasn't even an issue. We have to stop placing everything that we believe and think in the hands of these people who become elected officials because they have the same skin complexion that we have. Whether they be the President of the United States, a judge, a politician, elected official on city, state, or federal level. They're not going to change your conditions. They are not going to change anything for black people in America, because they don't have the power to do that. And they will never have the power to do that in America, because the system that we are presently under was created and controlled by white men with money and power. And that's the hands that it's still in. You will not vote these people out of power. You will not vote them out of their money. They control all the resources. They're the ones who's going all around the world exploiting and taking control of other people's country, land, and resources. Yeah, they're doing that through their military, through their Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force. This is what makes up the military of America: the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force. They use this as the tool to go around the world and take over and control other people's land, resources, and the people themselves. So when you hear American troops is stationed all around the world to protect America's interests, what does that really mean? It means that they have taken over and they are exploiting and controlling the resources of other people. That's what that was all about with Saddam Hussein in Iraq when they overthrew him and murdered him and his sons. That's what it was all about with Colonel Gaddafi in Libya. And I can go on and on and on with the many heads of states in other countries that they overthrew, took over their resources, their land, and the people. I mean, come on, this is not something that is unknown. This has been going on since America has been established. Since the Constitution was officially established in 1787 and ratified in 1789. I mean, I know the whole history of this whole Constitution and, you know, the American independence, and, you know, with the Declaration of Independence with Thomas Jefferson, you know, when they formulated that whole document in 1776. I know American history backwards and forward. That's why I know it's a sham. So the stuff that they teach you in these public schools, when you go to school and you learn about America, the system of government, and all that is lies. A bunch of lies. Everything that I learned it on my own about the truth of what this stands for, what America stands for. Yeah, I had to learn all that on my own. And of course, a lot of black people in America, they live in poverty. So the system doesn't work for them. So they don't believe in the system. It's only those who have been indoctrinated and brainwashed through the public school system that they believe in the system. Those who have got PhDs and master's degrees and all these different degrees, and they went to the best colleges and universities. They live in some of the best, you know, areas in America. They hold some of the prominent positions in society. They believe in America because it works for them. So they believe in it. I mean, they live in the best areas in America. They got their houses, their cars, you know, they live in a life of luxury. And I'm talking about all these actors, stars, entertainers, all of them fall in the same category. You know, a lot of them will tell you the story about, you know, yeah, I didn't have nothing. I came from nothing to this. No, yeah, them stories all the time. But what does it really mean to us as people? And how can that change our conditions? It can't. So all these stories that you hear about blacks that they was at one time poor and now they live in the life, and you know, yeah, all this about the rappers and all. Come on, listen. What does all that really mean to you when you live day by day in poverty? You will never see what they are seeing and living every day. You'll never see that. It's because this is how this system is shaped, where you have two kinds of people, the poor and the rich. You don't need to go through a whole lot of thinking to figure out where you fit in at. It's simple. You're the poor. Plain and simple. Just look around you. Look at your conditions. Look at who you are. You're the poor. So don't believe that myth about politics and the power of the vote is going to change our conditions. No, it's going to change the condition of certain individuals, which is the ones that I spoke about, that have the PhDs, the associate's degrees, they have the master's degrees, they went to the best colleges and universities, they live in the best neighborhoods, they got the best jobs, the best houses, the best cars. Yeah, those blacks, it changed their conditions because they learned how to be able to maneuver in the system, to use the system to their advantage. But that's not going to do anything for us as a people on an overall scale. Them living the way that they live in is not going to change the way that the majority of black people live in America. That's not going to change that. The only way that's going to change is if we change it. And how are we going to do that? It starts with us as individuals, looking at our life, looking at who we are as a people, and then acknowledging what has happened to us as a people, and then begin the process to change that. But we have to start with our individual self. I have a video that I spoke about the power of transformation. You can't change anything until you first change yourself. If we're going to build a better tomorrow for the children of today, we have to start with ourselves. It's not going to happen if we don't start with ourselves. We can talk about all the movements of the 1960s, all the black movements and all that, but what good is that going to do for us as a people? How is that going to help us today? It's not. It's good to know about that, to learn about it, to research it, so that you will have a base of awareness and be conscious of your own history and the struggle of your people, so that you will be able to find your place in this world and what you need to do to continue that struggle of your own people forward. But just knowing about it is not going to change our conditions or anything. We have to be the ones to do that. So don't think that politics and the power of the vote is going to make that happen. By you putting an elected official or putting somebody in some position in politics, that's not going to change your everyday life. That's not going to change how the majority of black people in America live. The poverty, the many different kinds of ailments that we suffer from, the sicknesses that we have, the lack of employment. I mean, not going to change none of that. None of that is going to change. The only way that that's going to change is if we change it. And we have to start with our individual self. Now, of course, you're going to have those that they're going to talk about it. They're even going to study about it, research about it, read about it, but they're not going to do anything about it because they're not going to change their individual self. You have to start with yourself. You can talk about it, read about it, study about it, research about it. Okay. But what is that going to do? That's not going to do anything. It's good to do those things, but what's the next step after you do those things? It's about transforming your individual life to become an instrument of change. But you first have to change yourself. You can't begin to do anything or to change anything if you yourself have not changed. And in one of the videos, I spoke about changing our values, our morals, our principles, changing the way we think and the way we act as individuals. That's the beginning of the process of change. We have to really question and look at the false information, the miseducation, and the indoctrination that we are still under as a people. And as individuals, we have to look at that. And then do something about it. I don't care how many degrees you get or what colleges or universities you graduate from. That don't mean anything. You have a bunch of black people in America. We have over 40 million black people in America. And the mass majority of them are indoctrinated, miseducated, and under false information. Doesn't matter what colleges or universities they went to or what public schools that they attended or graduated from. None of that matters. They are still affected by this system. The way to break that whole cycle is to change your values, your morals, your principles, your way of thinking, and the way you act. And that's a process. That's not something that's just going to happen. It took me years to go through that. So that's a process. That's not something that's just going to happen. By you just reading, researching, studying history. Because after you read, research, study, then you have to start to apply all the things that you read, researched, and studied. You have to have a means by which you apply that in your life. Because I know a lot of brothers that I ran into all throughout the course of my experience that they are some of the best readers, did the best research and studying and all that, and it still hasn't changed them as individuals. Their values, their morals, their principles, the way they think, the way they act, all remain the same. They just can cite off to you names, dates, and events in history as to what happened and all this, but none of that has changed them. So it has to be a whole process that you have to go through. Now, some of that is going to be the beginning stages of reading, researching, studying. Yeah, you have to do all that. Because if I wouldn't have did all that, I would have never been able to be the kind of person that I am today. So yes, all that is very important. But what you do after that is even more important. Now remember what I said. All that is very important. But what you do after that is more important. So don't get caught up in the studying, the researching, and the reading, because all of that is for the purpose of leading you somewhere so that you can start to do certain things, to make certain moves. Not to just be one of those that you know it all, that you can cite off names, dates, and events of all different type of stuff that happened in history. That ain't gonna mean anything. That's definitely not gonna change our conditions. It's what you do after that that's gonna have an impact and make a difference. So knowing these things, that's the first step. And in knowing all that, you will know that politics and the power of the vote don't mean anything. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was the leader and founder of the Nation of Islam, he founded that in 1934. He attempted to lay out a blueprint for black people in America so that they will be able to change their conditions as a people. Now, many blacks in that time era, listened to what he had to say. But the majority of black people didn't even listen to the man. Paid him no attention. But people like Malcolm X, listened to him. And Malcolm learned about Elijah Muhammad when he was in prison. Yeah, he wasn't in the street. He was in prison. He had been sentenced to 5 to 10 years for living the street life. No, he was into the crime life. The drugs, the violence, the robbing, the stealing, he was doing all that. Well, it landed him in prison, which is what it did to many of us as the years went on. And it was in prison that he learned about the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that was the beginning stage of his transformation from who he was to who he became, that many of us learned about. See, you got people that they'll learn about all these different people and people like Malcolm X, but they'll forget about what he was before he became who he is. What he was before he started that journey and that process to become the person that he later became. So when we think of or hear about Malcolm X, people only see him as this charismatic and electrifying speaker. But they don't look at how he became the person that he became. He went through a whole process of transforming his life. And that process started when he was introduced to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, what happened later on in his life where he decided that he no longer wanted to be under those teachings, that's something totally different. But what started his transformation and the process of that transformation was being introduced to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So make no mistake about it that Elijah Muhammad laid out a plan. He had a blueprint for changing the conditions of black people in America. But, of course, a lot of people didn't follow that blueprint. But those who did became very successful in changing not only their individual self, but in having an impact and making a difference in changing the lives of other people. Now, I spoke about, in the last video, I also spoke about that Allah, who is the man who established the nation of gods and earths, the 5% nation, which I am a member of and have been a member of since I was 17 years old. That's been over 30 years. The man Allah was under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In fact, my watch has a picture of him in it. Yeah, I walk around with him, a picture of him in my watch, because I was always impressed with him as an individual. Because this man, Allah, was not a guy who just came and he was all together himself. No, he came from the same background as Malcolm, in the streets, with the drugs, the gambling. I mean, he was doing a whole lot of things in the streets before he himself went through the transformation and started that process. He was also under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So what was it about the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that had such a profound impact on people like Allah, Malcolm X, Farrakhan, Muhammad Ali, who was Cassius Clay, changed his name to Muhammad Ali after he realized that, in his own words, that he had a white man name. Cassius Clay is not my name, that's your name. What was it about these teachings that had such a profound effect on these individuals that caused them to change their life completely? Of course, that's something that, if you really want to learn about it, study it, research it. Because it definitely had a profound effect on me, where I would never be the same person that I was before I went through that transformation, before I got knowledge of self. I would have never learned about the sham of politics and the power of the vote and all that. I would have never learned about all that had I not had knowledge of self. Because as I mentioned, you got a lot of blacks that go to these colleges and universities and they get all these degrees and they learn all this different stuff, but they still slaves to the system. They still miseducated, indoctrinated, and have false information. Yeah, they still fall in that category. So when you think of all these entertainers, actors, stars, rappers, I mean, all these elected officials and that hold these prominent positions in society, that live in the best areas in America, got the fancy houses and cars, and they all are products of the same system. They all been miseducated, indoctrinated, and given false information. And they in no way is going to be able to change our conditions as a people. We have to do that. And it starts with our individual self. So don't get caught up in the politics and the power of the vote. Every time a black is elected to office, you have a bunch of silly blacks running around elated about that, celebrating about that. And when the celebration is over, they all got to go back to the neighborhoods they live in, the poverty and the poor housing that they reside in, and the day-to-day poor conditions that they live under after the celebration is over. That's what they go back to. Meanwhile, the individual that they celebrating about, he gets the opportunity to go and be amongst the power elite, which is white men with money and power. They're going to tell him what he's going to do next. Yeah, they're going to tell him what he's going to do next. Because he ain't got no power. They're going to tell him what he's going to do next. And that's what they do to all the blacks in America. Whether you're an actor, entertainer, star, rapper, whether you're an elected official, yeah, they tell you what you're going to do. I don't care how much money you got or where you live in these prominent positions that you hold in society. They're still going to tell you what to do. With all the money you got and all the houses that you own and the cars that you own and the property that you own, they still want to tell you what to do. So don't get caught up in that. Don't have them have you believing that the answer to your problems is getting a lot of money and being able to buy the fancy cars and houses and live in the best neighborhoods, that in some way is going to change your conditions. No, it may change for the individual, but it's not going to change the conditions of black people in America. All that is, a lot of them just sold their soul. They live with these people now. Everything is okay now. Like the Michael Jordans and the Oprah Winfrey's, and everything is okay now. Because they have a lot of money, they own property, they own their own houses, they live in the best neighborhoods, in the best areas in America. So everything's okay with them. They don't see the conditions of the overall majority of black people, even though they have the same skin complexion as us. Zora Neale Hurston, who was a writer in the 1930s and 40s, she said, and I never forget this, what she said in one of her books. She said, all my skin folks is not my kin folks. Now let me say that again. She said, all my skin folks is not my kin folks. Now, of course, that was another way of us saying, all the people that look like me, that doesn't mean that they're related to me. That was her way of saying that. And when you look at the blacks that make it, what they call make it in America, when they say you made it in America, that means you have the fancy houses, the cars, the money, you live in the best neighborhoods. They call that a success. You made it in America. You have what they call the American dream. Who wouldn't want that? I mean, that's what they really indoctrinate you and brainwash you to strive for. That you should put all your time, effort, and energy into getting the luxury so that you will be able to live well. In America. Yeah. That's what Martin Luther King was talking about with the American dream. He said, I have a dream is deeply rooted in the American dream. I'm not a dreamer. I don't have dreams, I have visions. And the vision that I have is to see my own people build economically, politically, culturally, and socially, to be able to control their own lives and their own communities. That's the vision that I have, not a dream. I'm not a dreamer. I have a vision. And that is what I'm working towards. I don't want to be one of those who live wealthy, live rich in the best neighborhoods, uh, have all the money and cars, and no, I don't want to be one of those people. I have no desire to do that. My whole focus is to have an impact and make a difference in changing the conditions of my own people. That's my focus. Not to live like white people or to live amongst white people. I have no desire to do that whatsoever. So each week when I make a video, I'm talking about those conditions. And I know that everybody has to start somewhere. And you have to start with yourself. In order to change the conditions of us as a people, we have to start with ourselves. Because if we're going to build a world of tomorrow for the babies of today, we can't do that if we haven't even made a change within our individual self. I'm talking about our values, our morals, our principles, our way of thinking, our actions. We have to change all that. Many of us, that is our greatest challenge. So we can't even be talking about changing our conditions. We can't even get past our greatest challenge of changing ourselves. It's going to come a time where we got to just leave people behind. You got to just move forward. You can't keep trying to tell people the same thing over and over again. They're not listening. Just move forward. Move without them. I had to do that in my own family. I looked around, I seen that they were still doing the same thing that they was doing 30 years ago. Okay, if that's your choice, it's not mine. I'm gonna move right past you. Some of us, we allow family members to keep us from moving forward because they're not ready to move forward. So does that mean that you should move forward because they're not ready to move forward? We have to always remember that this is bigger than our family, bigger than our individual family. Our conditions are much more important in changing than our individual family. And if you can't see that and you can't get past that, then you're not ready. You are not ready to move forward because you are allowing your family or family members to hold you back. So you're not ready. I had to make that decision myself. Am I going to allow them to hold me back? Not with the knowledge and experience that I have. No, I'm not going to allow that. They are something of the past. And that's where I left them, in the past. Now I brought the message to them. I attempted to help them move forward, but they chose not to. And I know that it's as a result of the conditioning. I know that. I know that they are still under the false information, miseducation, and indoctrination. I know that. But does that mean that I'm going to allow them to hold me back? No, I'm not going to allow that. My mission and cause is greater than my family. It's greater than me. So I'm not going to allow them to hold me back. I'm going to move forward. And that's what I've been doing. So I'm saying to you, the process and the first step starts with yourself. You have to change your values, your morals, and your principles. Change the way you think and the way you act. And the only way you're going to do that is you have to go through a process. You have to read, study, research, and know about the things that will help you to achieve that whole thing. Now, if you don't do the studying, the reading, and the researching, then it is just not going to happen. If you don't change your values, your morals, your principles, your way of thinking, your actions, then it's just not going to happen. I mean, I speak to and deal with people every day that they refuse to change that. Last week, I did a video on health and longevity. The title of his diet, the key to good health and longevity. And I spoke about how we don't even want to acknowledge that we are in bad health as a people, that we're losing the fight in the area of health. We don't even want to acknowledge that. So we need to really deal with a lot of these issues. And I'm going to end this video with this. I want to first thank all those people who've supported BabyBeautiful.co by ordering online clothes for their babies. And I want to welcome those who have not done so as of yet, to come on board, become a part of the family, and help us in this process. Don't just sit by idle and do nothing, but just complain. Become a part of the process. Huey P. Newton, who was the founder of the Black Panther movement in 1966, the Black Panther movement was started. He said, one of his sayings was, either you are part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And I like to look at that when I think of many of my own people. So you need to ask yourself today, are you a part of the solution or are you a part of the problem? And whichever way you answer that will determine your next step. So with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings.